What's up, everybody? Welcome into day one of the Sarah Boone trial. We're going to get into opening statements, whether or not they're as effective as we expected them to be. We're going to get through a bunch of witnesses that happened today. We're going to talk about how the pace of the trial may affect the outcome and what we think of the lawyering so far. And then, of course, we're going to answer your questions. So please hit that like button, subscribe. The trial begins now. It was a great day today, by the way. Just getting into it on a personal level. Just a great day. Friday, got a lot of things accomplished. That's always my favorite thing. Check a lot of things off the list. Was able to play 9 holes this evening with my dad. Just got done to get here in time for this video. Got to listen to this entire Sarah Boone trial. And while we were playing golf, actually settled a case that was going to trial in a couple weeks that I've talked about a couple times on this podcast that we mistried with the jury issue that we busted the whole panel months ago, and it got continued out this far. Really great result for our client. So really, really happy about today, and not even Florida State losing tonight in about an hour when that kicks off can ruin my night. And I get to hang out with you beautiful people. So we're here and we're getting to hear everything packaged into the arguments and statements made by the lawyers and the witness statements. We get to hear the actual evidence as the jury hears it. And before we get into opening statements, I want us to remember, in a case like this, that on this channel, we've been basically breaking it down since day one. We know so much about this case. And there are other trials where we know nothing. So we can be confused in openings like they didn't do a very good job because they didn't explain to us who this person is or what that background is. But let's remember, when we watch this trial and these opening statements, the jury seemingly knows nothing or next to nothing about the case. So it's important to remember that it is the lawyer's job to set the stage, tell them what they're going to be hearing, but tell them what this evidence means and how it all connects to each other. And that's incredibly important as we kind of talk through these opening statements. We're going to focus a lot on the opening statements, and then the ease and speed in which I am going to go through recapping the witnesses should give you an idea as to how the lawyering has been so far in this case. And I'm going to focus on the state because it's their case in chief. They have the burden of proof. They have chosen the order of proof as to how they are going to present this case, the witnesses, the evidence, and the way in which they're going to present it. And the ease in which we are able to summarize and go through is a very, very good sign for the state. But as we go through it, I want to know from you. I want to know from you guys, the potential jurors in whatever jurisdiction in which you live. I want to know what you think. Not what you know and what we think is coming, but just off of what we are, just what we are seeing and hearing together. Is the state convincing you after one day? And not a lot happens in one day, right? Well, not unless it's this trial where a ton of witnesses go. So help me think of your thought process as a juror. Are they making steps? Is the state moving the ball down the field here, trying to score eventually at the end and win? All right. So we start with the Richardson hearing. Basically, it wasn't a big enough prejudice to the state, even though these like turn it over, medical records, et cetera, et cetera. We want to get into opening statements, right? So that's what we're here for. And the first part I'm going to play is him reading the transcript, because we thought it was so effective when he did it in the hearing, the way that the prosecutor read the transcript of the suitcase video. I wanted to make sure that we listened to him read it to the jury for the first time. And it's basically the very beginning of his opening statement. And let's listen to it, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it.
45 seconds on February 23rd, 2020 in Orange County, Florida. Is a suitcase on the ground face down with the zippers facing the floor. You will hear Sarah. The defendant will say, "For everything you've done to me." Sarah. "For everything you've done to me." Sarah. "Fuck you." And then the defendant laughs.
By the way, people were asking, is he going to drop the F-bombs? The answer is yes, he is going to drop the F-bombs because he probably thinks they have a little more punch to them and kind of show her mindset, because that's the important part here, is her mindset, right? So he does do it. So that's one thing to kind of consider.
Sarah, fuck you. And the defendant laughs. Sarah, stupid. Sarah, that's my name. Don't wear it out. Sarah, I can't fucking breathe, baby. Seriously. Yeah, that's what you do when you choke me. Sarah.
So that's what you do when you choke me. There's going to be other references to that just in day one of trial. Okay? That's what you do when you choke me. And remember, okay, the jury does not know the context of this case. They don't know battered spouse stuff. They don't know about their relationship. They could be two completely normal people with a normal relationship with, kids and a family and a house and whatever. They don't really know at this point. This is kind of the initial, shock to them of, wow, this is what happened. And this is the interaction between them.
Sarah. Sarah. The defendant laughs again. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe. She laughs again. That's on you. Sarah, I can't breathe. She laughs again. Unintelligible words. And I would submit the evidence is going to show because of the intoxication from alcohol is the next thing she says.
And so we weren't sure how he was going to deal with the drunken slur that he said in the hearing, which had some punch to it. And he said the evidence will show that alcohol was involved or whatever he said, which I think was about as good as you can deal with it.
Sarah, I can't breathe, baby. That's what I feel like when you cheat on me. Sarah, fuck you. I can't fucking breathe, Sarah. You should probably shut the fuck up. Sarah, shh, is the last thing you will hear the defendant say to Mr. Torres as he is face down, zipped shut in a suitcase. That, again, began at 11:12:45 and lasts just over 2 minutes. At 11:23 and 3 seconds p.m., there's a second 22-second video, and it's the defendant zooming in on the suitcase. And all you hear during this 22 seconds after he's been in the suitcase since at least 11:12 p.m. is one more time, Sarah. How did we get to this point where 103-pound George Torres?
And he does walk away, and the mic is not great. I'm going to summarize a lot of it, the stuff that he says away. But that was his reading of the transcript. Just my opinion, okay? And again, overarching theme, I think the state seems, if you saw my tweet, incredibly organized and prepared. And I love the way they're presenting this trial witness by witness, just getting out what the really important parts are. I did not think his reading of that transcript hit as hard as it did at the hearing. That's just my opinion. I really want to know what you guys think as lay people. And again, it's the first time the jury's hearing it, so they didn't hear it yesterday. Maybe that's coloring the way we look at it, the way we see it. I also would have done a lot more setup. I would have been like, these people were together for however many years. Sarah said everything's great. They're having a hunky-dory time, blah, blah, blah. But then this happened, and then you read it, right? Now it doesn't make any sense. And afterwards, all she did was say unintentional, unintentional, intentional was an accident, was an accident, was an accident. That's kind of, I would have given more of a setup, I think, so that the jury was more, oh, okay, normal, everything's good, everything. Whoa, that? What in the world is that? That's probably how I would have done it. Now, some of the issues with an opening statement in this situation where we all know the defense or the defendant's going to testify, and Mr. J knows that the defendant is going to testify and completely change her story, we have to be careful as lawyers, and especially as prosecutors, to say the defendant's going to take the stand and completely change her statements. Because at any point, the defendant can say, I'm not taking the stand. And then now you brought the defendant testifying into this case. And so you really can't do that as a prosecutor. You can't say the defendant's going to get up there and she's going to say X, Y, and Z. But what you can say is you're going to hear the defendant argue self-defense and battered spouse defense. And in that defense, it can't be an accident. But what was Sarah Boone spewing the day of the incident and the days following? And I would have played clips. I would have maybe even clipped it up and been like, unintentional. This was unintentional. Accident. Nothing intentional here. I might have clipped it up. A highlight reel of how many different ways she said this was an accident. And then to say the defense is going to argue, not that Sarah Boone is going to say, but the defense is now going to argue self-defense. And you're going to hear from the officers, Sarah Boone was trying to convince them it wasn't intentional. She's been trying to weasel her way out of this case from the beginning. And when that didn't work with the officers, now the defense is going to argue self-defense. But you're going to see the evidence does not point to that. Something like that, you know? And there's a little argument in there, and we're going to hear a little argument in this opening statement, which, you know, if it gets objected to, it is what it is. But we're going to jump ahead a little bit and listen to some more of this opening. I didn't think personally either opening statement was incredibly effective. I thought there were good parts in both of them, but kind of mid.
You will hear a certain level of concern. My boyfriend and I were playing last night.
So somebody said, I feel like the judge wouldn't have let that in. So I don't know what you mean. The judge absolutely said the state could talk about battered spouse and self-defense in opening, just like the defense could, and how they expect that to be the defense they try. So I don't know what part you're talking about specifically, but if the judge wouldn't have allowed it, then Megan said, is there a professional juror job? This is my kind of Friday evening, Peter. Why can't they play the video transcript only? Oh, I think they can play the video. I think they're going to play the video. I think he thought it was more effective to read the transcript. Prosecutor did a good job on opening. However, the defense has, for the first time in 4 years, humanized her. It would have hit harder if he'd stayed at the mic and set the scene more, i.e. the buildup. So I will say the mic issue is just for us listening to the stream. The jury heard him just as well off mic. So as far as presentation to the people that are going to be making the decision, it was probably just as important. Janet said, why were things put in evidence but not shown? So a lot of things were put in and some of them have been shown. My guess is throughout the trial, they're going to show all those pieces of evidence. All right, let's keep listening here.
Put him in a suitcase, and we were playing hide and seek kind of thing. I fell asleep. Found him dead in the suitcase this morning. I don't know what happened. He had blood coming out of his mouth. Don't know if it was an aneurysm. Pulled him out of the suitcase, tried to give him CPR. He was in the suitcase and I fell asleep. He's not awake. He's purple. He's not breathing. There's some instructions about how to do CPR given to her, asking about whether an AED is available to shock his heart. It's too late. He's cold. He's stiff. He's purple. We were playing hide and seek. We were playing hide and seek. This is horrible.
Oh, you mean no videos, no videos or pictures in opening. Okay, I didn't hear the judge say that. So some judges say that. I hate that. I don't know why, especially when I would have pushed on that. And again, maybe I still would have lost, but I'm like, Judge, they're stipulating to the video. They agree the video is coming in. Why can I not play the video in opening? I hate that. Civil judges, I feel like, don't usually do that. Criminal courts, sometimes they do that. It's like, if we all know it's coming into evidence, I should be able to play it in opening, but whatever. I'm sure we'll see it throughout the trial and in closing. But I must have missed the judge say that.
Horrible. This is horrific what happened. Like, what happened? We were playing hide and seek last night and I fell asleep. So she mentions that there was blood coming out of his mouth. And his body, like all bodies in his death, was taken to the 9th district medical examiner's office in autopsy. What the doctor found was what we expect after being left in the suitcase.
By the way, just FYI, I'm going to pump the volume as much as I can while he's away. I will also summarize so we can hear certain parts of it, but a lot of the clips I'm going to play, he's going to be back at the podium. So we are going to be able to, hear most of it. A suitcase downstairs when he got in, she dragged it up regarding the neighbor. I'm not sure if she dragged it up or pushed it down. I thought they were saying she pushed it down, but I could be wrong. I don't think that's been clearly described at this point.
He passed from positional asphyxiation, meaning like you're not going to get full rest when you're crumpled up like an accordion, and environmental suffocation. You don't have to have a plastic bag over your head, tape shut with a full roll of duct tape to seal it out 100%.
Every time I pause, I'll also give you a little second to adjust the volume if you need to. He's explaining how horrible it is to die the way that George died. Positional asphyxiation.
It's close enough if you can't get the oxygen and the CO2 coming in and out of your environment. But she also did notice, he suffered from blunt force trauma on his torso, in his face, his mouth. She'll use words like contusion. We'll help her explain contusions and bruises. She'll use words like hematomas. We'll help her understand for you all that means bleeding under the skin and blood. What you expect to improve. That's why they're running through. But had all this additional trauma. He had trauma on his fingers as well. So now, the sheriff's office, Orange County Fire Rescue show up. And the defendant interacts with the first patrol officer. You will see and hear that body on camera. It's more of the same as what we heard on the 911 call. I see. It was good. I fell asleep.
So again, I guess it wasn't the prosecutor's fault. He wasn't able to clip together a video presentation of all the times she said unintentional, but maybe he'll do it in closing. I mean, there's so many different ways she describes how this was an accident. And it's actually even better because once she's testified, then the prosecutor can comment on her testimony and her testifying, and he can show how different and he can purely argue, right? You can't, no objections for argument in closings. I would just play a highlight reel of her. I just gave myself a thumbs down. A highlight reel of her saying unintentional accident and be like, and when that didn't work, they switched it to this. And now this completely different discussion and conversation about what happened. Sarah Boone comes and says to you on the stand to try to trick you, but we know the truth. Something like that.
What happened? A few hours later, the detectives from Homicide Unit at the Orange County Sheriff's Office approach her and are ready to interview her after doing some initial things, which includes grabbing her cell phone, off of a counter that was found at a suitcase by Mr. Torres, and giving it to one of their digital forensic examiners, who we'll hear from later in the trial. But it's time to give the first interview with the defendant. So they do the first interview with the defendant in one of their unmarked detective patrol cars there on the scene. And the basics of this remain the same, but there's a little more elaboration, as you would expect from trained detectives versus getting the 911 call taken. But the basics of what the defendant tells them is we had wine, we painted, we drew, we did puzzles. The particular wine we had was a Chardonnay from the Woodbridge winery. The bottles, plural, are in the trash. We started about 4 p.m. after Mr. Torres went to the store. Puzzles, art, listening to music, enjoying each other's company. We were just literally just enjoying one another's company. The other bottle of wine that was left over from Boone wasn't even half full. So the description she is saying is 1 bottle of wine and plus a fraction of a bottle of wine left over from the night before. Ladies and gentlemen, not all bottles of wine are made the same. Many of us may envision what you would expect at a restaurant. Those are 750s, 750 milliliters of that. Bottles of wine that were recovered from the defendant's trash can were 1.5 liters. So the equivalent of 2 standard bottles of wine. A 1.5 liter bottle of wine is 50 ounces. Given that standard serving of wine is 5 ounces, you can begin to do the math. And here's receipts. The day before, Saturday, February 22nd, 2020, there is a receipt from Publix for a bottle of Woodbridge wine for $9.74. And then Sunday at 12:17 p.m., there is another receipt for $9.74 for a Woodbridge Chardonnay bottle of wine.
Personal opinion here. Personal opinion. While they are really keeping it tight, keeping it simple, I don't think you had to say how much the wine was or, what it was, whatever. 2 big bottles of wine. They were gone. We've got them in the trash can. It's going to be clear alcohol was involved. And alcohol was involved in this couple's life and their relationship from time to time. Things got violent when alcohol was involved, and things got violent tonight when Sarah Boone beat him with a baseball bat, whatever. I don't think you need to get into that they cost $9.74 and whatever. They're going to see the receipts. They're going to see the video. Just again, total nitpick, not a big deal at all. Just try to keep it simple, which I think they did for 99% of it. This was just something where I was like, all right.
And then at about 5:30 in the afternoon on February 23rd, again, there is another receipt for the same bottle of wine for the same price. And those 2 bottles of wine were recovered. They're going to be produced to you in evidence, and you will see that they are, in fact, Magnum bottles of wine. So that's the context that we're dealing with when we hear things like, we only had 1 bottle of wine, and we finished what was left in the bottle of wine from before. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's 2 1.5 liters that apparently were consumed by a 103-pound man and the defendant, who is in the same weight class. Plus, if you believe that the defendant and the decedent would leave leftover wine from any given day, any additional wine that was remaining from the 1.5 liters from Saturday. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a lot of wine. So in that context, we were just having wine, enjoying each other's company. At one point, we play hide and seek. She says she didn't zip it up all the way. There was enough room, in her words again, there was enough room for his little fingers to get out. We were still having a good time and whatever.
By the way, you notice how much of her statements he's using? That's key. When you've got them, you use them. It's the best thing you could do. The most damning evidence against somebody is their own words.
And basically, Mr. Torres is stressing out about jobs, his ex-wife, about money. And so they're just doing puzzles and doing things to keep his mind off of it. Doing art, playing with the dogs, dancing with the dogs, playing hide and seek. We were always trying to outdo each other where we could find each other the best. When they started playing hide and seek, she went up to the shower and then got tired of hanging out in the shower and came down. And that's when she found him playing around in the suitcase. We both thought it was funny. I'm going to zip you up. 2 little fingers could stick out. And she went upstairs thinking, he'll get out. We're going to have sex and go to sleep and call it a day. It was a good day. She insists that they had wine, but we're not drunk. You will be able to assess that for yourselves when you hear the recording she made. No ill will between us last night. Last argument, maybe last week. Don't really argue. We came home, drink, smoke, did art, listen to music, play with the dogs. We drink what we can afford. We used to be able to afford liquor, but now we can only afford wine. And that's how that day ends with the police. She goes and sleeps and stays at her ex-husband's house the night of February 24th and 25th. What they are doing, and by they I mean Orange County Sheriff's Office in part, that's when they discovered the 2 videos that I just described for you. And there's other things in the phone, which I will discuss with you in a little bit. But she's summoned in for another interview, and she sits down and gives another interview on February 25th, now Tuesday. She does describe past instances of violence. You're going to hear about that. She's going to say, Mr. Torres had hit her with a curtain rod about a month ago.
So now he's getting into what she's going to say. So he does do a little bit of it. And again, there's a good faith basis and a good reason to do that because the defense has said she's going to testify. They say it in their opening, although they haven't said it yet. You just have to be very careful about what you say the defendant is going to take the stand and say. You have to be very careful. Tina, thank you so much for gifting 20 memberships. That's awesome.
Since then, though, we've been good. I've been good. She describes that he comes at her all the time. He comes at me. So it's either I flee or I try to go upstairs and go to sleep. That's usually what it is. I don't know if you talk to Brian, her husband, about any of that, but most of the time I flee and I go over there. There's a discussion about why she stays with him, and you'll hear that for yourself. She will say that she doesn't really want to drink. She just takes an occasional drink. She drinks to placate him, Mr. Torres. She says that you're going to see.
I might have also done, every time she said something, the evidence is going to show that's not true. The evidence is going to show that's not true. The evidence is going to show that's not true. Every time she said something that was pretty clearly not true based on maybe her own statements that are going to come out at trial or other evidence that does not corroborate what she's saying. Corey said, all optics very strategically placed. No, thank you, Peter. I don't know what you mean by that. All optics very strategically placed. I don't know what you mean by that.
Phone videos of Mr. Torres smashing her TV in the past, a month earlier. You may see that too. But she doesn't get drunk. When she drinks, she likes being non-compos mentis, her words, not mine, having her wits about herself.
Did you like how he used her pretentious verbiage against her? You knew that was coming.
Then she gets to the hide and seek again and describes that they've played it 3 times before, but had never zipped one another shut in it before. And they were really just running out of places to hide because it's just a townhome. She does not remember, according to her, she does not remember taking any photos or videos of the night's events. At this point, they ask her, well, would you like to see it? And she says, I can't watch this. I flipped him over. I flipped him over, and that's where it was.
Yeah, but I think he's referencing her deposition, or the deposition of the experts that talked to her, or her prior hearing. So I do think he's mentioning her prior statements, which I guess theoretically he could put those in. So maybe if he's well, he couldn't put in what's talked about with the experts, so that's not going to come in if the self-defense battered spouse defense doesn't come in. There's just a lot up in the air. And I'll just tell you, from somebody who has done this, you don't want to mess with that. That you lose. Mistrial characterized as your fault if you start saying the defendant's going to do X, Y, and Z when they don't have to. Even if they say they plan to and they change their mind, they're allowed to.
It was. Guys, this is killing me right now. That's why I flipped it over between the two videos. I didn't do anything intentional. Discussion over whether he had enough room to get any of his fingers out from the zipper. My intention was not to leave him there. We both got in there. Both of us were in there. When she went upstairs, my plan was not to, quote, he'll be up here any minute. My plan wasn't to leave him in the suitcase. Why is all this going on?
No, what we were referencing before, that she said it was not in the interrogation. It was not. This is the part of the news story that he referenced.
It's the drinking. That's what it is. It's the drinking. I thought he was okay. Guys, that's how we were with each other. Nobody understands our relationship. This whole suitcase thing never happened before. Though she described it happening before.
I know this is the police station. I know. We were talking about a prior statement that he said. It's okay. We don't have to keep going over that.
I'll never drink alcohol again.
Anything in the interrogation or that she said on body cam footage, of course, use that, 100% use that. But there was some references that he made to other statements that she made as part of the news story.
She insists that she has no injuries on her. And you don't have to take her word for it, because they took photographs of her and there were no injuries on her. She insists over and over that there was no violence that day. It's like, okay, we're in a good place right now. Ask her about saying fuck you to Mr. Torres. Well, that's just being playful and having a good day. Everybody's having a good day. I didn't touch him, nor did he touch me. Her words. What else is found on her phone? There's a conversation between Mr. Torres' brother, and again, nobody knows who's using these phones at the time text messages are sent in these records that you're going to see. But it's indicated that there's a communication between one of the decedent's brothers and the owner of the phone that was taken that belongs to Ms. Boone. The text from the brother is, yo, my daughter told me what you did, Sarah. I don't want you around any of my daughters or nieces and nephews. And that's Christmas 2019, just under 2 months before this event. She replies, or the person using her device at this time, ugh, your quote unquote dad hit me in the face. The next text is, hide and seek, I shall. January 13th, there's another heated discussion. She describes it on January 13th in a text to Mo, the brother again. It's a Torres thing. Boo. Sends a picture. Keep the fugly creep out too. It's still fugly. Lose. The brother responds, please do something with yourself, Sarah. God bless you. The defendant's response, and bless you and all of you too. I'll get, in all capitals, rid of him. Then it'll be, in all capitals, better. Ugh. Torres, referring to Mr. Torres getting.
So he got in, right? A lot of the damning statements that she made. Was it powerful? Was it gripping? Was it engaging? That's the question. He explains about how we're going to go into their past relationship, how she said she would have to pay the price. May hear about injuries that the victim allegedly caused to the defendant. The state asks them not to rush to judgment, because they're going to have to put on a rebuttal case for that battered spouse syndrome. And he talks about how you're going to hear from the experts and have to determine what is reasonable. But he gives a little analogy about the experts and how, they can get to credible opinions or not. So let's hear him explain that. It's kind of the last clip we're going to watch of the prosecution's opening.
ordinary, objective, reasonable person in those circumstances taking those actions if you get self-defense instruction part. That's what it's used for. It's not used for explaining the subjective beliefs that one holds. What you will also hear about these things is, just like any other doctor or any expert, a home inspector. If a home inspector's report was based solely on the person who's trying to sell the house, what they say about the house, great shape. I rewired the entire thing. Brand new JDC pipes. This sucker's good to go. I'm afraid this isn't that. You're not going to take that home inspector's report unless they lift the hood, take the tires, and all the things that the box on here.
This is pure argument, right? And he's explaining how you got to look under the hood. You got to see all the evidence. That's the person you're going to respect more or understand or agree with their opinion more. And he's, I think, setting up that the state's experts have looked at everything and the defenses haven't. And that's why you need to focus on what the experts that have actually gotten all the information. We don't need to listen to all of it because it is kind of hard to hear. And I know, you guys hate that and I get it. So yeah, he's trying to explain it needs to be a reasonable person. Can't just be Sarah Boone making it up in her head, et cetera, et cetera. Ashley said, rate each opening. I wasn't a fan of either. I would say the prosecution's opening was a C. Wasn't horrible, didn't lose the case, didn't lose the jury. It just wasn't, I don't think, overly exciting. I don't think it was overly engaging, especially with the facts you have in this case. Mickey said, Peter, who would you want to be the state of the defense in this case? I mean, if we're just talking about winning, and which would be more of where I feel like the winning side would be and more to work with strategically in presenting something, I think the state has more to work with in this case, which is normally the case in this situation. The defenses we'll listen to, and then Ashley, I'll try to remember to rate after we listen to it. Tangling with Gina. Peter, will Sarah testify in narrative form because her attorney thinks she will contradict herself? I don't know why. I didn't hear the judge say that. I heard reports of it. I don't know why she's doing it that way. I mean, in the past, this is one of the reasons and one of the problems that necessitate a narrative form. Megs, he was so thin. Was there something else going on? So during the defense's opening, they talk about how they were both malnourished because they spent their money on alcohol instead of food. Corey, I get what you mean. The suitcase and bat are visible to the jury during opening, et cetera. Basically, evidence placed strategically behind the ASA during opening. Yeah, if I was the defense, I would have said, get that out of here. Don't make it visible. Sometimes lawyers will leave their podium up, or, they have a picture or words and they put it behind them when they're done using it, but still visible to the jury while somebody else is asking questions. And maybe some jurors will be looking over there at what you want. So a good eye, and lawyers absolutely do that. They teach you to do that in like mock trial and stuff. Cindy, my first live as a new member. This case is why I made the jump from subscriber to member. Peter, Papatragos, and chat are very welcoming. Glad to be a part of the family. Welcome, Cindy. Welcome. Thoughts on Owen's book, Battered Spouse Syndrome, displayed on the desk. So I can't see that, but that's exactly what I was talking about. Wouldn't surprise me. Lawyers do stuff like that all the time. All the time. Lady Los Andra, how could the state's choice to describe rather than show the video affect the jury's perception of the overall effectiveness of their argument? So if the judge told you can't, then you can't. But I definitely think playing it would have been more effective. We'll talk about them showing the bat in the suitcase later and how that helps paint the picture and how effective I thought that was. But I definitely think playing the video would have been more effective than just reading the transcript. But if the judge ties your hands, the judge ties your hands. The defense's opening kind of started with they both suffer from alcoholism. They both are dependent on each other. And then he starts to get into kind of their past relationship. He basically jumps right into it, since that is, in fact, the crux of their defense.
It affected their jobs. It affected keeping employment. It affected even getting a job. As codependent as you can be towards each other. And you're going to learn with all that was domestic violence. And that George Torres physically abused Sarah Boone. And she suffered from the effects, the psychological effects that one suffers from repeat violence from an intimate partner. They were together over 3 years. And there were several prior incidences of violence. We've got the photographs. There were incidences where police were called who took photographs. So you're going to be able to see the evidence. And we believe the court will instruct you at the end when you're considering self-defense, which we call justifiable use of non-deadly force or justifiable use of deadly force, that you can consider the prior acts, the history of violence, the prior difficulties that the parties had.
And again, we have to remember, jury doesn't know everything. They don't know all the context. So when you hear him say prior domestic violence, police called, pictures taken, that sounds legitimate. That legitimizes it. And I will tell you, there was not a lot of nonsense in his opening. It really focused on the good facts of his case, right? And if the jury doesn't know anything and they hear that suitcase, it sounds really bad, but then they're like, no, he's the bad guy. Cops called on him. Now, what is the jury going to think when they hear maybe the allegations were going both ways? That's still left to be seen. But as we sit here right now, the jury is just finding out all this information for the first time. So the jury is going to, be hearing this for the first time, and first impressions are often the most important ones. And I do think by starting out with this very early on in his opening, it was a good move. Deb, I declare Peter the John Madden of YouTube. This might be the greatest compliment I've ever gotten.
Considering her set of circumstances that she was faced with in making the decision to use reasonable force under the circumstances. And the most important thing I can tell you here today is keep an open mind. There's two sides to every story. You're going to hear the state's side in attempting to paint her a certain way, as they've done here today in opening statement. And then you're going to hear another side. And you're going to have to weigh that. All the evidence, the credibility of the witnesses, the photographs, the videotapes, and come to a conclusion.
So I think that both sides asking for you to wait and don't jump to judgment or rush to judgment, I think the jury is very likely to do that, right? When both sides are just hammering it home. Azam, Peter, isn't this sound like an accident from her statement? Absolutely, from her first statement. Now she said battered spouse. Can she be impeached if and when she testifies, even in narrative form? Absolutely. Because even if you testify in narrative form, you still get cross-examined by the opposing attorney. Narrative form just means your lawyer doesn't get up there and ask you questions. All right, then he gets into the day of the event. He said they had some good days and good times together. But when he drinks, it's violent. And sometimes even forces intimacy on her. And let's listen to kind of his description of the events. And again, a lot of this comes from Sarah Boone's testimony, or what we expect and what I think he expects Sarah Boone's testimony to be.
This is not good. She knows this means he's going to get to another level of intoxication. So Sarah's concerned. So attempts to placate him, keep him busy, keep him in a good mood. They drink that bottle, but she drinks as well.
Very important. In order to placate him, he's already been drinking. They drink bottle, and she drinks too because she's just trying to placate him.
And at some point, they're intoxicated at a high level. As some people do when they're drunk, they get silly and they decide to play a game of hide and seek.
So we knew it was coming. We knew he had to explain away the hide and seek, because there's going to be people on that jury, just like there are people still in this chat saying, why are two adults playing hide and seek? That is so weird. So what does he say? They're drinking and they just get silly and they decide to play a game of hide and seek. Rate that explanation on a scale of 1 to 10.
She goes upstairs, to the bedroom's upstairs, to the shower and waits for a period of time. And he doesn't come to her. At some point, she gets cold, she gets tired. She wants to go sleep. Well, maybe we got it mixed up. Where is he? So she goes downstairs, and they had gotten a suitcase down a week or so ago. It was an old suitcase that they were going to donate to Helping Hands or Goodwill or somebody, and they were putting some items in there. And it's a broken down suitcase. It's a large suitcase. They both weigh about 100 pounds. And they don't eat good. malnourished to a large degree. But the pull handle is broken off. And they've attached a little paper clip that's got the rubber around it, and that's how they move back and forth. Well, she comes down the steps, she sees him getting in and settling in the suitcase. So she walks over there, and they see each other, they smile and laugh, and she zips him up.
They see each other, they smile and laugh, and she zips him up. So admitting that she zips him up. He's got to explain it. He's got to explain it. And I think that the facts are what they are, folks, okay? So he only has so much he can deal with. I personally found his opening a little bit more engaging than the state's. I don't love the facts for him. It doesn't mean you're going to win the trial, but if I had to rate his opening, it might be C+, B- based on the facts. If the state's was a C, his maybe a C+, right? So a little bit better than the state. Again, I definitely think they have the tougher factual scenario to work with. And just, drinking and silly hide and seek is not a great explanation to me, personally. Not a great explanation to me.
And she zips him up, and they laugh for a while. And they carry on. She sits on the couch, and at some point he says, "I can't breathe." Now his face is facing the zipper, and she's got 2 or 3 inches that she's opened it, and she doesn't know. They're intoxicated. She doesn't know whether he's just saying that to try to get her to get him out or what. But he's a captive.
So that was weird. I want to back it up because I thought that was a very weird statement. Lady Law said, Peter, you gave the state a C. What would you give the defense? Probably a C+. What could each side have done better? Not a lot the defense can do, right? In my opinion, it's just a tough case for them. For the state, I thought these facts are captivating enough to be a lot more animated than he was. I don't necessarily want him to act like it's Hollywood or something, but I definitely think it could have been more attention grabbing. And I feel like you could have almost won the case in opening statement as the state because of how the factual scenario was set up, how she changed her story, but what she was saying at first, how nothing's lining up. I really think it came down to presentation more than facts. I think the facts are still what they are. And I think the state still has a good case, and I'm not harping on him. It's not like it was horrible. It's not like he lost it in opening. You guys are asking for kind of these critiques. So that's why I'm giving him, but I wanted to play this part again. When he's like, he asked to get out, and I didn't know if he was just saying that. It's like, what?
And she doesn't know. They're intoxicated. She got 2 or 3 inches that she's opened it. And she doesn't know. They're intoxicated. She doesn't know whether he's just saying that to try to get her to get him out or what.
Is he just saying that for him to have her let him out? It's like, yeah, that's why he's saying that. That's why he's saying, can I get out of the suitcase? And I think he started talking and kind of didn't know where he got. And he was like, that's what it felt like to me.
But he's a captive audience. Physically, they're the same size, but he's much stronger than her. If they got in a fist fight, he would win 100 times out of 100. But she's got him down. He claims he can't get out. He has to sit and listen. It's a unique form of physical restraint.
It's a unique form of physical restraint. Okay.
And so she lets him have it. Says things she shouldn't say.
She lets him have it, says things she shouldn't say. Admitting a lot of bad facts. A lot of bad facts.
You'll see the video. It's about 2 minutes long. She videotapes it. She sits on the couch and turns her phone on and videotapes it for about 2 minutes. There's another video that's approximately 11 minutes later. The first video, George's, the suitcase is flipped upside down. The zipper's pulled off. 11 minutes later, Sarah has flipped it right side up. Again, open for him to get out. And it's only 22 seconds. And you hear George say, Sarah. And that's it. Now, the key to the case is that 11 minutes and what happened during that 11 minutes. Okay? That is the key to this case.
Don't you love it? There's 2 videos where Sarah Boone says all sorts of stuff she shouldn't say. But the 11 minutes that are not on video, that is the key to the case. Those 11 minutes. Well, Mr. Owens, they better be, if you're going to win this case, they better be an important 11 minutes. And he's going to have an explanation and Sarah Boone's going to testify about it and all that. But this isn't, again, just to say whose presentation was better doesn't mean their case is better. Doesn't mean I necessarily believe what they're arguing or saying, because I know what those videos look like. And whatever happened in the 11 minutes between, in my opinion, it's going to be really hard to change the perspective of what the actual videos in real time depict. Based on what I know, I don't think those 11 minutes were the most important 11 minutes, but we haven't heard her testify yet, so we'll reserve ruling until we hear all the evidence.
Sarah Boone will take the stand. She will explain what happened. She will explain why it happened. The evidence will show that she was justified in the action she took to prevent an attack from George Torres, which the law acknowledges that every one of us has a right to invoke, the right of self-defense. You can hear from the medical examiner. She is going to tell you about some bruising on George Torres. Of course, he was in the suitcase a while, deceased, we believe. And that changes things a little bit, as the medical examiner will explain, but there's some bruising. Sarah's going to explain that to you, why that happened, what were the circumstances surrounding that, involving that. Her son comes and stays with him from time to time. He has his own room. He has several of his things there, and there's a bat downstairs. The same bat that George Torres used, and there's a video where George is threatening Sarah, and he's swinging the bat at the TV about as hard as he can, and he does it.
That's how he mentions the bat at first. There were more uses for the bat than that, but that's what he mentions first.
About 6 or 7 times, you'll see it. Sarah's recording, and it's during an argument, and he's trying to intimidate. Sarah loves you. You know, you're going to hear why women don't leave. Why women
Gets a little into the battered spouse defense now, what the experts are going to say, the mental health side of it.
don't leave. And you're going to hear about Sarah Boone and her struggles, her mental health struggles. Sarah had known him. The prosecutor mentioned she wanted him to die. Farthest from the truth. She loved the man. She hated the abuse. She couldn't leave him. She tried. She tried taking him out 6 or 7.
So that's an interesting comment, right? She didn't want him to die. Okay. Well, self-defense can't be an accident. Fine. But you can. Maybe they are going with a little hybrid like I talked about. Maybe it's like she wanted to restrain him and stop him from hurting her. Then she accidentally passed out. There's an accidental element, but still self-defense overall.
6 or 7 times. He kept coming back. She changed the locks. He kept coming back. She didn't have the family. She didn't have the support. She was weak, vulnerable. You're going to hear it all. You've got to take that all into account to try to understand what happened and the circumstances surrounding this tumultuous relationship.
Nietzsche said, wait, I feel so dumb. I always genuinely believed they were playing hide and seek. Why else would he get another threat? No, I agree. I think they were playing hide and seek. I think they were. I think he just needs to get over the fact that the juror, I think what I meant by explanation, if that's why you brought this up, is a lot of the jurors are just going to be like, that's weird. So he feels like he has to comment on it. The last comment that was talking about maybe the state like knew it too well and it was too over rehearsed almost. That does happen sometimes. Diane, what is different about this case than Black Swan? So there's a lot of things that are different, but what I'll say just off the top is the explanation of the events by the defendant. You don't have to believe either of them, but Ashley Benefield, her explanation, if it was true, I think does rise to the level of putting somebody in serious fear of serious bodily harm or death. Sarah Boone's explanation, I'm not even sure if you take her at her word as true, if it even rises to that level. That's one difference I see. There's a bunch of differences. Under which circumstances does Sarah Boone have to testify in narrative form? So it's not like she has to. It can be a request. Sometimes it can mean the lawyer doesn't want to ask her questions. Sometimes the defense is going to ask to do that, the defendant. Sometimes if defendants have represented themselves in certain aspects of the case, they can say, that's how I prepared for it, judge. That's how I'd like to do it. There are a bunch of different ways that you can, but the most common way is a lawyer does not want to commit fraud on the court and ask questions that he knows the witness is going to lie to or elicit lies from the defendant. So sometimes that's the most common way, I would say. All right, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. He talks about how she's not perfect. She sleeps in, walks downstairs, finds him. She's smart, but not worldly. He says, like not street smart, but she's book smart, kind of is what he means. Sarah feels responsible, he said, which I thought was interesting verbiage, and talks to law enforcement. He says the officers tricked her to come down for the interrogation. They wanted to confess. They wanted to make her confess. But what happens? What happens when she shows up to get interrogated after being tricked by law enforcement? And she knew. She was sitting there and she knew they were trying to get her to confess. So what did she do? This not street smart, but yes, book smart lady.
That was on the 25th in the afternoon when she got there to get her phone. They said, well, we got to come up here. We need to talk. And they got her in the room. It's a small room, but it's being videotaped and audio taped. And it goes on for about 2 hours of them trying to get a confession to murder. And it doesn't happen. But Sarah lies. She's scared. She can tell they're trying to pin her on this, that this was some kind of intentional act, and it was not. So she lies. She's not a lawyer. She doesn't know about self-defense. She doesn't understand she has a lawful right to defend herself. She doesn't understand that she's justified in using the force that she used. She doesn't. I wasn't there. Who advised her? No lawyer was there. So she lied. And you're going to hear that.
I wasn't there. She doesn't understand self-defense. So she lied. And you're going to hear that. Admitting your client is a liar when they are going to take the stand and they are going to ask the jury to believe them as the most important part of the case is always very difficult.
So you're going to have to balance that versus her taking the stand and testifying for you. And we simply ask that you look for the evidence of cooperation of her testimony.
He says, see which one's more corroborated. What she says at the police station that we're now admitting is a lie, or what she says on the stand.
It's going to be later, probably next week. The judges will tell you in written instruction on evaluation.
He basically is saying, Susan, that everything she said in the interrogation is a lie. She was lying on purpose because she didn't know what to do. Cops tricked her into coming there. She didn't have a lawyer. She didn't know what self-defense is. That's what he's saying, I think. That's what I'm picking up, at least.
Evaluating witnesses' credibility. And they'll talk about marvelous evidence, other evidence that's consistent with the testimony that Sarah Boone gave. So you're going to have to weigh that in her testimony. Now, self-defense, we talked about it in jury selection, usually a gun, some deadly weapon. The suitcase in this case was a physical restraint or a blocking of an attack, but it was unconventional. Self-defense nonetheless. Now, as I said, the struggles that occurred, many of them involved the police. So you're going to actually hear from some of the police officers.
And I do think it's smart to bring that up. That's the last clip we're going to listen to on the opening for the defense. Jennifer, know any idea why the state didn't ask Boone about prior violence there? Are they waiting for the defense to bring it up first? Probably. They're probably just going to cross him there as, because they can ask leading questions and cross and they can get all of it out then. It seems like they're going to do more of a response than the offensive before the self-defense claims. And maybe they really think the judge is not going to allow the self-defense claims in. We'll see. Lady Law. Since the defense asked the jurors about personality disorders, but is focusing on a battered spouse offense, how might this questioning influence juror bias or set up a secondary defense? You mean like, was he trying to plant the seed that she's got some kind of personality disorder and therefore they should feel bad for her or some other defense? I'm not sure. I think they're going to really try to fit the mental health disorders and maybe alcoholism in with how that affects a person that is a battered spouse. But we'll see how it kind of comes out with the experts. I think the experts are going to be of the utmost importance on separating all of this and determining this. The trick defense is bull, in my opinion. She says the same thing on the body cam videos. So she lied to the police at the scene too, not buying it. Mo, why would you not buy it? Why would you not believe it? It's like, yeah, I mean, from what we've seen, obviously, but that's why the presentation of the evidence is so important by the state to show her demeanor and her explanation does not seem like somebody who's freaking out and doesn't know what's going on. Doesn't seem like somebody who's under duress. Seems like somebody who's put together and basically making her argument to the cops why this is not her fault because it was not intentional. That's clearly the argument she chose and she went with. All right, we get into the first couple of witnesses. And the first witness that took the stand was George Torres' younger brother. Really sad, kind of surprising as the first witness. I was like, oh, wow, what's he going to testify to? And all he really testified to was George called him the night of the crime. And in the background, Sarah was saying, like, tell him how you choked me. And we remember this context is being built up that when we're going to talk to mental health experts, that Sarah did this stuff to basically antagonize him. So is she the one starting the problems? Is she really not scared? Is she not really a battered spouse, but instead this was kind of her emotional abuse of George? I don't know, because they talk about how she knows this stuff would make him mad, but she still kind of told him to do it. On cross, so he also talked about, the choking. And then on cross, he never lived with him. Phone call was at 7:30. George didn't sound drunk. Didn't seem like Sarah was drinking or couldn't really tell. And he did hear in the background Sarah tell him how you were choking me. So again, first instance of violence coming out from George to Sarah. I kind of agree. Mo, because we heard it, the fear about what's going on with the family multiple times in the videos. Next witness was Devin Jamro, works at Publix, receipts and surveillance of buying wine. Joan Williams, 911 operator, to get the 911 call in. Would have been nice if they were stipulated to as witnesses, but they weren't. Fourth witness, Battaglia, Boone's neighbor. Walls are thin, heard arguments daily. Boone approached him. If you hear anything next door, don't say anything. Shh. On 2/23, the day of the crime, he heard a really loud noises and yelling. The loud noises stopped after he heard, a loud thud sound. Loud noises stopped. And then the thud was at, 11:15. The intense argument was around 10:30. Then we're going to play a little clip from his roommate, the next witness, heard arguing. And he was like, I do not want to talk to them. I do not like Boone and Torres. I avoided them. And he explains that loud thud sounded like so this was the first neighbor witness. This was the second. And he talks about, he actually connects that the loud sound, you can kind of tell how the apartments are set up, that was coming from something coming down the stairs.
Evening. Did you hear a loud crashing sound?
Yeah, probably around 10:30, 11 o'clock that evening.
And can you describe that sound for us in more detail? Literally, like I said, at like 10:30, 11 o'clock, it's the way their staircase was set up. I could, my bedroom, the top of their staircase would have been like above my ceiling, and it ends next to where like my roommate's apartment was. So I could hear something start above me super loud and then fall away from me like it was falling down the stairs.
Did this affect the walls that were between your two apartments?
Oh yeah, me and my roommate. I remember me and my roommate talking the next day about like we could literally like it shook both of our rooms.
Did you ever have occasion to talk with the defendant about what happened?
I never saw her after that. She would have.
All right. So that's how he explains kind of that loud thud noise. Southern Gigi said, please stop hating on Sarah. This was an accident. Southern Gigi, listen. My initial inclination was to be sarcastic. I will not be sarcastic. By saying it's not an accident, I am now taking Sarah's second story that she told that it was in fact not an accident. So if you're going to believe Sarah, she is the one saying now it was not an accident. I always said that was the best defense, that this was an accident. And that's what she said at first, but that is not what she's saying now. You act very biased against her. What happened to innocent until proven guilty? I think I've said it like 50 times in this coverage that she's innocent until proven guilty, and she absolutely is. And the state is now putting on evidence to try and prove her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So I 100% agree. As she sits there right now, she is absolutely innocent, cloaked in the presumption of innocent. But she is not saying it's an accident. So I'm not going to say it's an accident if she's saying it's not. She's saying she did this intentionally in self-defense to protect herself. Peter, can you imagine if Alan Jackson was on the case? He'd be foaming at the mouth and would lunge, or she'd be foaming at the mouth and lunge at him like Edward Norton in Primal Fear. This is sad, really. Imagine if she had been honest from the jump. What kind of sentence would she be looking at? 15 years. I don't think the state's offer was unfair. It was an accident, some kind of manslaughter, maybe 10 to 15 years if she would have taken a plea deal early on. Minnie, so does a narrative form mean the prosecutor can't ask her questions either? No. Prosecutor can absolutely ask her questions on cross-examination. Absolutely. For right, over under days of trial until she takes the plea. I don't know. Unless the trial goes really well for the defense, I don't think the state's going to back off of their offer. And I think if they're offering 15 years, I don't think Sarah Boone's going to take it. Or she would have already taken it. I guess theoretically, if it goes really well for the state and they still offer 15 years, then maybe she'll take it. All right, on cross, he said he really doesn't like drunk people and they were drunk a lot. He saw her asleep on the back patio. Boone was paranoid and talked to him one day. He did not want to talk to her. But when she was paranoid, this little nugget that I think was good for the defense came out. And again, defense attorneys, getting what they can out of this testimony.
I don't really remember too many details of what she was saying because I didn't want to talk to her. She did, but yeah.
Okay. Do you remember saying that you believe Sarah was avoiding going into her apartment?
That's definitely the vibe. I don't remember what she was saying, but the vibe she was giving off was that she didn't want to go home.
I believe, and I just want to make sure.
The vibe she was giving off is that she did not want to go home. Listen, it's straws. It's straws, okay? But we're trying to pick out the good stuff for both sides. And that, to me, I think was a good little nugget for the defense. All right, then we had the lunch break. Yeah, I was talking about we're moving fast. I mean, we had openings and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 witnesses in the morning. And then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 witnesses in the afternoon. So 10 witnesses and openings on the first day. And by the way, just to give you a little schedule update of when I'm going to try to go there, hit the like button, by the way, if you haven't already. Next week is pretty much nuked for me, so I can't go. So I was planning on going either Monday or Wednesday of the following week, the week of Halloween. But now that this is happening, I got to make it happen Monday, October 28th. That's the day I think I'm going to come to the trial and see. Maybe it'll be closing arguments. Maybe Sarah Boone will be testifying. I have no idea what's going to be happening, but this trial seems to be flying. It was supposed to last 2.5 weeks, I think, including jury selection. So that would end on Tuesday or Wednesday of the week I'm going to come. So hopefully trial is still going Monday. And I'll do everything I can. It's going to be a little condensed and smashed, but that's my plan right now. Of course, subject to change. All right. Next was Brian Boone, who we have heard from already in the past. But it was very short. Sarah's ex, she called him that night drunk. He had to tell her to call 911 3 times after he saw, legs in the living room. The defense, though, is going to reserve their questions until they call Brian Boone in their case in chief. My guess is they're going to ask to treat him as a hostile witness. That's when I think the real fiery testimony is going to come from Brian Boone. But he talked about her being drunk, calling her that day, and that he had to tell her to call 911. I think maybe it could have even been highlighted more by the prosecutor, the fact that it took way too long for her to call 911. And I think the jury's going to pick up on that. Okay, next they play the 911 calls that were already entered in. Let's listen to a little bit of them. I don't think we've listened to a bunch of them on the channel in the past. So we're going to listen to some of them now.
4748 Brent Court, apartment 3. 4748, what's the street name? Brent, Rantd. And the appointment number? 3. Is it the police or medical? My boyfriend is dead. Okay, then allow for the appointment. Do not.
It's kind of an interesting, everybody's going to be judging her demeanor on this call, right? So what do you think when you hear her demeanor on this call?
Hang on. That's been no, please don't leave. 4748 Brent Lane, apartment 3, Brent Court. Brent Court? Yes.
Okay, just near Mackenzie Drive?
I don't know where that is.
Okay, fair.
It's still with my apartment.
Okay, 4748 Brent, correct?
Correct.
All right, correct. Now tell me exactly what happened there.
My boyfriend and I were playing last night, and I was in a case and we were playing. And but kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep and I woke up and he was dead in the suitcase. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
Right, okay, what's your apartment number?
3.
Apartment 3?
Yes, like he had like blood coming out of his mouth, and I don't know, like he had like an aneurysm on what nothing.
Right, okay, all right, okay. So we're getting out of OT. All right, okay. Okay,
Now?
okay, 407, this is water wheel there. You're 407-716-8684. Okay, you hanging from somewhere or what, man?
No, I cleaned out of the suitcase. I tried giving him CPR.
Okay, so you was in a suitcase?
Yes, and I fell asleep.
Okay, how old is he?
So somebody asked here, sorry, the chat's flying. Why didn't Brian Boone call 911? Good question. Defense could have asked him that. Why didn't you call 911? I think he probably would have just said, I was telling her to call it. She knew what happened. I didn't. She could have given them more information. I didn't know how long he had been down there. I didn't know if we checked the pulse. I didn't know anything. She knew all this other information. I thought it would be better and more helpful if she called 911. That's what I would have answered. I have no idea what he would have answered. I think that would have been an absolutely fair question by the defense.
42-year-old man. All right. Okay, we're checking up on the sheriff's officer out there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. All right, listen to me. Okay, that you need to confirm this one. No, right, I need to confirm this. Is he awake at all? Is he conscious at all?
No, he's purple.
Right, is he breathing?
No.
All right. I need to get him on the floor, on his back for you, okay?
I did. I tried giving him CPR.
All right.
I tried giving him CPR.
Yeah, okay,
No, nothing happened. He's purple.
okay, listen, you did the defense of the bill. I need you to get it for me, okay?
What is it?
Her reactions are really important. The jury's watching them.
No.
All right, you right by him now?
I'm sorry?
You right by him now?
Yes.
Okay, okay, ma'am, listen, so listen, is he cold and stiff?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he's not necessarily cold, but he's stiff. And
Right, okay. All right, listen, I want you to lay him flat his back for me on the floor.
I did.
Remove the pillows, okay?
Yes, I did.
All right, okay, wait.
He's stiff and he's purple.
Right, okay, listen, okay, man, that's fine. We're still going to do the compression bill, okay? All right? If you look your hand on his breastbone, right instead of the chest, right between the nipples.
Yes.
Put your hands up on that hand.
Betty, I'm telling you. There's somebody on his cell.
Okay.
Please, okay, your girdle.
Okay, listen to me. All right, I want you to take the heel of your hand. Okay, right between his chest, right between his breastbones. Put your other hand up on
He says, Mom, I heard people saying this. I don't know. Honestly, that's hard for me to tell. It would be hard for me to say confidently. Lorna said, can you get line sitters like LawTube did for Deb? I'm not going to ask for that. I'm going to ask some contacts I have over there if there's a way to legitimately get in and be able to get a seat or something I can do beforehand. I'm not going to take anybody else's spot. If I don't get in, I don't get in. I've got stuff going on all the way through Sunday. I'm going to try to leave early Monday morning and get over there. I'll do my best and see if I can get in. If not, I'll do my best. I'll see what I can do. Kim said YSL prosecutors could take some tips on moving witnesses along quicker. A bunch of trials could. Lying before being tricked into going into the station. Well, that's because you know the timeline, Reese's mom. And this is kind of an indication of what the state needs to make sure they do in presenting the timeline in a way that the jury also picks up on the fact that she was lying. if she's saying she was lying, okay, I'm not calling her a liar on my own. She admits to lying. So me saying she's lying is a proven fact by Sarah Boone admitting it. But she says she did it basically after being tricked into coming to the police station. But she was telling the same story immediately outside her house when she called the cops to come, right? Because she called 911. It was the state that argued against using pics and videos in opening. Owens tried to use posters with incorrect jury instructions. Well, whether or not pictures or anything is allowed in opening, incorrect jury instructions would never be allowed. But that's interesting because I think they would have been much more effective for the state to use. But what do I know?
We want the focus test to be hard and fast. Go to it twice per second. Okay, no, just keep on pumping. That's all you need to do for me. Keep on pumping his chest over this. I don't need you to stop and talk or anything. I just want you to count out blood for me, okay?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This is nice to me.
Okay, man, just keep on pumping his chest. That's all you need to do for me, okay?
Yes. Come on, please, hurry up.
Okay, man, just right here.
Is so naturally argumentative, you know, that it's hard to even tell, like, does she care? Does she not? Because it just, I mean, she's just so argumentative. This is on 1.25 speed, by the way. So that's why it sounds like she's counting fast.
Fast they can. Okay, don't stop and say hurry up. Just keep on pumping and counting. Okay. All right, just keep up the chest. Count up, I can count with you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Please hurry.
Okay, man, just get here as fast as they can, okay?
He's there and he's purple.
Okay, keep pumping his chest for me, man.
I'm still doing it, okay? Still doing it. Still doing it.
Right, okay, that's fine. You do the job. Just keep on doing it for me. All right, they're getting as fast as they can. I'll know the sheriff's office also, okay?
Please.
Keep on pumping, man. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep on pumping for me, man.
I'm doing it, okay? We're going to play hide and seek.
All right, I understand. All right, just keep on pumping for me, okay? Okay.
Please hurry.
All right, okay.
Oh, this is horrific. What happened? Like, what happened?
Okay, man, keep on pumping the chest for me, okay? They're in the parking lot. They should be up there shortly, okay?
I'm still doing it, okay?
All right, okay, good. And you found them in a suitcase, you said?
Yes. We were playing hide and seek last night. I fell asleep. I think that's it.
Right, just keep on pumping.
So was she lying now to 911 operators as well? Melanie said, will the jurors be taking her lack of emotion in court into consideration too? Example, when she's watching videos or looking at evidence. So it's not technically evidence, right? Evidence comes from the witness stand or is entered as exhibits, but they absolutely can take whatever they see into account, and it does affect jurors. Now the judge can instruct them that, all the evidence comes from the witness stand, testimony, evidence from exhibits, but jurors are people. And I've talked to lots of jurors who watch a defendant during trial or a plaintiff in a civil case or a civil defendant, and it absolutely matters.
Pumping the chest up there, okay? Okay. Okay. Okay.
So it's a good point, Paula. And I don't remember her like wiping blood off or mentioning she got blood in her mouth or anything like that. It's interesting.
Let that take over for you, okay?
What was the last time anybody saw him? The last time. We're playing hide and seek. He was unfortunately, he's been down too long. Hello, ma'am?
And so we're there, obviously.
All right, that's the gist of the 911 calls. Next witness was Moreno, the maintenance man at the property. And he testified basically that there was a conversation that Sarah told him that she was going to teach George a lesson the night he died. On cross, it seemed like they were impeaching him on that, but I never really got but you didn't tell the officer that. He's like, did you tell the officer the same thing? Did you tell this person the same thing? So I don't know if the defense is going to impeach later with the officer, but he said he had the same story the whole time. And then the defense also, basically tried to make him seem biased because he's known George since George was a teenager. Deputy Rodriguez, who is I think this is Deputy Rodriguez. Is that right? I might have some names screwed up here because there was a lot of cops. Body cam footage. They play it. They do a walkthrough of the house. Sarah's statements. I fell asleep. It was an accident. All of those statements coming in. There was no cross on her. Again, she was scared of the family hurting her, things like that. No self-defense, no overt act. No, George did something to scare me and I reacted. No discussion about, that I was in fear for my life or that I was restraining him with the bag or anything like that. Nothing like that. Next was Deputy Martinez, which I think is after all the body cam footage. We watched all that together. Deputy Martinez. Finally, somebody IDs her. He says that's Sarah Boone sitting over there. He saw Torres laying on the ground when he entered. Body cam footage, again, her saying no intention, tries explaining away, which again, the defense says is all lies. Again, says the family hates her, and again, no cross. Next officer is Ruff Garden, who is CSI, forensic biologist type, talks about the crime scene photos. We see the apartment, the trash, the wine, the stairs, the suitcase, the physical evidence, the wine, the bat, the bag. The zipper handle was a little hard to use, as she said. And I did think it was effective when they took out the suitcase and unzipped it so she could show how it was a little bit difficult to unzip and open up, and basically you think how somebody's supposed to do that when they're inside the suitcase. But it did give you an idea. I'm just going to turn the volume off and we can watch them at 2x speed, take the suitcase out so you guys can see kind of what it looked like. I personally, you guys let me know, I thought this was effective to show how small it is. And I could only imagine how miserable would it be for this to be your final resting place. Yeah, Emily texted me about the ID. She's like, is that a Florida thing? I'm like, no, you definitely have to do it. I assume eventually they're going to do it. But Peter, she's not a zipper expert. Fair point. Fair point. So you can see she struggles to get it open even on 2x speed. I don't think she was acting or anything. I think anytime, if you've ever had a suitcase, I've had that break off of a suitcase before. It's pretty tough to open without. I personally think it was effective that they actually showed the suitcase itself. Dispatcher here, there is no way to know if she is doing CPR. Sounds like she is, and people react differently during CA calls. Can't judge demeanor, all different. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. What's the purpose of the people by the judge? So I'm assuming they're either law clerks. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I haven't really been paying a ton of attention to them. Let me see. What age do you think these people are behind the judge? Because I'm going to make a completely wild speculative guess, okay? They could be law clerks. They could be people sitting in. They could be visiting people, whatever. But I know, and you guys remember how I know this judge, right? I know this judge because he is a mock trial coach. And is he inviting some of his mock trial students potentially, or law students if he teaches the trial ad class, is he inviting them to come watch some of this trial? I don't know. I don't know the answer, but that would be interesting. If I talk to him and he recognizes me, he might not remember me from the mock trial competition. I recognize him from the mock trial competition. If he does and they're still there when I go check it out, I may ask him if those are some of his students. Because what an experience that would be, right? Watching this case and learning from it. Why is she not being pointed out? Every witness doesn't need to point her out. You just need to ID her, and this officer did, and I'm sure they'll have other witnesses do it too, and that's good enough. I found her to be an excellent witness and great with cross-examination. I agree. I thought she was a good witness as well. I think she did her job, right? Because of course the defense is trying to act like, you know, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't test the blood, you just assumed it was George's, but Sarah Boone admits to putting him in there. He said you didn't look for any signs of prior DV, like holes in the wall, things like that. Oh, Peter, I think he explained them after lunch. Okay, I did not see that. I did not see that. Oh, people said you're right. Oh, baby lawyers. Okay, so they're either baby lawyer. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, sorry, I didn't know that. My B, guys. My B. I thought I uncovered some amazing thought. He said those were students. Okay, now I feel like an idiot. Okay, so he said it. I didn't hear that part. I just skipped to when the testimony started. I skipped the lunch break. He explained there are students from his class. It looks kind of fun, almost like a panel of judges or like his bodyguards behind him, but that makes complete sense because he is a mock trial coach. He did say it. Okay, my B, guys, my B. Cool. I'm glad you told me. Thank you. That's cool. From mock trial school. That's awesome. So cool. Very cool. Very cool. So I don't have to ask him. Yeah, Barry University. That's the school he coached for. So funny. Southern Gigi, I can't comprehend how people can make fun of Sarah for wanting to look nice. Her life is on the line, or wanting snacks to get through her long days. What if this was your sister, daughter, mother? So Gigi, again, there are things that we absolutely fight for, the defendant's rights. We talk about that a lot on this channel. I don't think anybody is harping on the way that she looks. If they are, that's not what I'm doing. I can't control, obviously, every single person in the chat. But asking for professional hair and makeup is above and beyond. And I think it's coupled in with some of her letters, the way she's talked about some other people, how she's treated some other people, that in context, it does show something about somebody. And if she's going to take the stand, the jury is going to be judging that. And that's what we're going to see, is how she comes off to the jury. That's what's most important. Number one. Number two, nobody's saying she can't get food. But there is a certain way Sarah Boone does things that I think might rub people the wrong way. And people giving their reactions to that is usually indicative of how a jury may respond if they see these same tendencies, which we'll see. We'll see. If it was my mother, sister, daughter, whatever, I would try to get her the professional hair and makeup. I would try to bring her the snacks that she wants. I would try to put money in her commissary account. I would do everything I could to help her. Absolutely. Peter, I think he explained it after lunch. Yes, thank you. He says it later. They are students. Thank you. Ha ha ha, your face, Peter, really the lawyer you know reaction? Yeah, see, you guys judge my reaction too. Shame on Sarah for using DV mocking real victims. Again, that remains to be seen. We'll see how the evidence comes out. Deb, how can she create a new storyline for the time frame that she could not even remember the 11 seconds when she recorded the videos? These are all questions that the jury's probably going to be asking themselves. We will see how the prosecutor picks those arguments apart and those differences apart. We're going to see how all of that evidence is attacked. That's going to be really important, and we're going to watch it unfold together here as the trial starts. Overtime already. I expect a lot of that during this trial. Thanks for spending at least part of your Friday night with me, everybody. Please hit that like button. We've gotten like every Sarah Boone video lately to 10,000 likes. It's so cool when I see 10,000 likes on video. I'm like, this is insane. It's insane that this happens, that you guys are here. I appreciate you guys so much. If I go and I'm able to talk to the judge, maybe after the fact, I'll email the judge, talk about mock trial and stuff with him. So cool to see that happening. I love mock trials, probably my favorite part of law school. But anyways, sideshow. Hit the like button, subscribe, all the things. Very cool podcast coming Monday with a special guest that a lot of you guys came here from her YouTube channel. 2 cases she want to talk about. Sarah Boone is one of them, and another we've never talked about on this channel, but a trial that's going on right now. All right. That's all we got. Till next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.